Hello everyone, it is December 1st, 2025. It is incredibly snowy outside, let me tell you. On this nice, and I'm saying nice perhaps in a little bit of a generous way, on this nice Chicago morning at 11 o'clock, it is blanketed with snow everywhere. There's slush on the ground. Some of the people working here at the University of Chicago doing some of the environmental campus environments work, trying to keep everything functioning. They're spraying some salt on the sidewalk to make sure that people can walk and make sure that people don't slip or have to step through entire hills of ice. I'm enjoying my time. I have this, and then I have a black jacket on top, and in due time I'm going to make my trek to the library to do some work. And it was 2 weeks. We are 2 weeks after the release of Gemini 3.0. It released on November 18th, and I've had some time to operate on it. I have some thoughts, and I have some broader thoughts about Google and its race to win the battle of AI against some of its competitors in OpenAI and Anthropic. Today, we also have, and we don't have a ton of information about it, but we do have some information out of DeepSeek, who just released their own open source model, which I won't get into too much because it was just released quite literally within like 12 to 24 hours. But the DeepSeek model seems to be quite impressive and very cheap. But we'll put a hold on that for now, especially because it is a Chinese model and it doesn't have some of the benefits that some of the American models have. But regardless, massive props to DeepSeek. Gemini 3.0 released, and one of the big things that came with this release is, well, first of all, it outperformed basically every model on every benchmark at the time of its release, with the exception of software engineering bench verified. And it did incredibly, especially on multimodality. Multimodality means that it can handle different forms of data. Whereas most models tend to be specifically great on text-based data, the new Gemini 3.0 model is very good at visual reasoning and being able to interpret images, particularly in its spatial relationships, objects' spatial relationships with each other, and being able to reason off of them. So if you asked it to use direction, or you asked it to use some kind of other questions that relate to spatial or temporal reasoning, it is very effective at it. It is also very good at handling video, and it's good at generating video, but also very good at analyzing data and giving you more coherent, more substantive information out of video. So like you ask it to give you a specific detail about a frame within a video, and it can do quite well. And then it can also ask you some reasoning about, like, why did blank talk about this, and then use it to and try to find an intersection between the audio and the video within a video, within like a YouTube video that you provide, and it'll do quite well about it, or certainly better than other models. Gemini 3.0 has very good multimodality. It's not just that, it is very good at creating UI. When I ask it questions like, why don't you generate me a self-playing game that's very beautiful and very aesthetically pleasing, make it 3D. And you do this in AI Studio, it generates something, and it produces a game, and it is incredible. And within just a couple prompts, and certainly within a couple hours, you can generate some minimum viable product that is just straight up better than many people would take weeks to create. In fact, if you're quite good at vibe coding, I'm sure that you can create some software products that would rival what an old software engineering shop would take millions of dollars in terms of hiring programmers and weeks or even months to create. You can probably get something out of Gemini 3.0 of equivalent quality in just one vibe coding session of a couple hours. This is very effective for being able to lower the cost of entry for anybody with a business idea. I don't have any as of right now, but maybe in the future, hopefully in the future, or maybe not, I don't know. Maybe in the future I'll come up with something. I don't have anything right now. But this is all to say that Gemini 3.0 is very technically impressive. Later, Claude released Opus 4.5, and it is especially good on coding. I haven't really dived deep into it yet because it was released after Gemini, so it's only been out for maybe a week or and change. But Claude 4.5 is very good. But Claude 4.5 doesn't have it doesn't have the same benefits that Gemini has. So let me talk about some of the broader benefits and advantages that Google has beyond just the technical capabilities of its model. One thing that Claude has that is really going to benefit it when it's competing against OpenAI and Claude is that there's many benefits. One of them is that it has very good cash flow from its businesses, from Google and from YouTube and from GCP. They generate a ton of cash flow. And so as we potentially hit an AI winter, we don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe we're just going to continue to truck. But it's possible that eventually we're going to get to a point where companies can't just keep burning a bunch of money. And eventually investors or something, or the money is just eventually going to have, or the burn rate is eventually going to get to a point where these companies need to start hitting a profit. Google can afford to continue its research and development heavily. It can continue to sacrifice profits for market power, and it can continue to make sure that it continue to create model after model, which require a lot of capital expenditure, while being subsidized by the massive, I'm talking tens of billions of dollars that it is getting from its YouTube and Google Ads and GCP businesses. OpenAI doesn't have that luxury. OpenAI is losing billions of dollars every year. But it's not just that OpenAI is losing billions of dollars a year. Losing money is okay if it is if you're making a lot of free cash flow, but you're just doing a lot of capital expenditure. But the problem with OpenAI is that their costs aren't just capital expenditure, it's inference. So when somebody runs a query, it costs OpenAI some money to be able to process that query and then give an output. This is operating expenditure. So this isn't a fixed cost. It scales according to the amount of time that their models are being used. So if OpenAI was only spending money, or if it was mostly spending its money on just building out data centers or hiring more researchers to try to build better and better models, but otherwise its models were very profitable and generating a ton of cash flow, that would be one thing. But it's not. OpenAI, as they continue to get more queries into their models, it's going to cost them more. Now, hopefully down the line, they can be able to reduce the amount of money that it takes to hold inference, but they still haven't done that yet. And at this point, they're operating at a very large scale. So I don't know how much an economy of scale can help. At some point, they're going to have to really start cutting down costs. They haven't been able to do that right now. So the fact that OpenAI has a lot of their expenses in operating expenditures, which are variable costs instead of just a fixed cost from capital expenditure, can be one additional problem. And then they're earning money, but they're just not earning as much money as you would expect as maybe you would hope to see. And Sam Altman says they're going to make $100 billion by 2027 or something. And right now they're earning like 12. I don't know if I see it, but that's certainly going to be required. Another benefit that Google has is that they have a large product ecosystem. They can integrate their Gemini models into enhancing their YouTube products, in terms of uh, enhancing their GCP and their AI platforms, and being able to do a bunch of other things. The fact that Google has a huge product ecosystem, and certainly all the talent that comes from it, is going to make it's like a really good network effect that's going to allow them to continue to apply their models into different industries a lot more cleanly. And it's going to allow them to have different ways of monetizing their AI initiatives beyond just purely like an API. So I think Google, by the fact that they have so many different types of businesses, it's going to be really helpful when the time comes when they need to start productionizing their AI. And then all of the talent that comes from not just DeepMind, but all the people who specialize in all those different types of businesses, if they're very good at management and they're really good at managing their labor, I think it's going to be very beneficial. So this is all to say, I think Google's going to win when it all comes and goes, because of its cash flow, because of the technical brilliance of this new Gemini 3.0 model, which at the time of its release was absolutely, unquestionably top of all of the models available. And even with Claude Opus and maybe some Chinese models releasing, it is still very competitive. And then it has a strong product ecosystem. What's going to happen to OpenAI? Well, they have to make money. They're going to have to turn a profit eventually. They can't just keep burning. And slowly but surely, and I think this is going to happen within the next 18 months, we're going to get to a point where investors are going to start saying, yeah, we know your models are good. It's time to start making money. It's time to start making a profit. You're going to have to show us. And if OpenAI is unable to continue to release top of the line models, and if they're unable to make the numbers work, the investors are going to come knocking and say, we're not sure about the sustainability of this business. And so what might happen? What's going to happen if OpenAI is unable to make the numbers work? Well, they have 700, 800, or maybe 1 billion plus users. They're not going to worry too much about whether there's any value of their product. Obviously there is. There's a ton of value of their product, but they need to make the numbers work. But they have a pretty plausible exit strategy if it really just cannot compete against Google. And they're going to get acquired by Microsoft. Now, Microsoft already in some ways kind of has acquired OpenAI. They have a very large stake in the company. They also have a revenue share. And on top of all of this, OpenAI uses the servers of Azure servers for their business. And on top of all of it, Microsoft owns all intellectual property, or gets access to all intellectual property from OpenAI. So the fact that they have access to all intellectual property, they already have a sizable share of OpenAI, they have a large revenue stream, and the fact that OpenAI is based on Azure services makes this a very convenient acquisition down the road if OpenAI faces prolonged financial troubles. So I think that's something that very well could happen. Sam Altman, he's had a great run. OpenAI is unquestionably the most popular app in terms of the amount of users that it has, but it doesn't have a lot of things that would need to sustain it long term in being profitable, or if it's not profitable, having a ton of cash flow from other businesses to sustain it. It's starting to get outcompeted in terms of technical ability, and then it just has no ecosystem to continue to apply its AI initiatives into other businesses. OpenAI might be in trouble, but we will have to see. Their models are still great, and they have high name recognition. They have that going for them. But it's only a matter of time, because Google obviously doesn't have that much problem with name recognition either. It could be a amount of time where if Google's good, they're going to kick that dude out, and we're going to have to see what happens. So those are my main thoughts on Google, OpenAI. Claude, I really like Claude. And Claude, I think what they're going to do long term is just really, really hyper fixate on their software engineering product, because they even they're pretty far ahead in terms of their software engineering ability. It might not stay that way. Other companies might might really pick it up, and you just never know what's going to happen. That could certainly happen, but Claude has pretty consistently been top of the market, specifically when it comes to software engineering application. The software engineering bench verified metric, they've done very well on that. So at least they're always going to have that niche. And then, in my experience, the writing from Claude is very good. It's very good in a way that Gemini and ChatGPT aren't. It's very good at writing like smooth things, and the model's more willing to write extended like essays or anything like that, whereas Google is very much like concise bullet points, and ChatGPT, I just think it's too fake. It sounds too fake. It sounds too unnatural. It doesn't sound as human as Claude. So Claude has very good writing, in my opinion, and then obviously its software engineering products is very good. So those are the state of the models. I think Gemini is going to win long term. I think Claude is going to continue to have a niche. Maybe it could be bought out by Amazon or something like that, but I think it'll actually stay along quite well. And Claude is doing very well in the enterprise business, which is very meaningful. And then, there's always those Chinese models that could always just throw haymakers, but they're always going to have some disadvantage in that there's going to be a lot of hesitancy and skepticism regarding them for obvious reasons. So the AI wars, they're always exciting. I'm not as well versed in AI, especially the technical aspects, as a lot of those nerds you see in Silicon Valley and then in Twitter Spaces. But I'm a casual observer, and I enjoy seeing what these are. I'm a relative AI optimist. I have some worries and skepticism, just like everybody else. And I particularly am worried about the fact that the quality of the images and video is kind of like ruining any level of trust in the truth, or being able to trust the validity of anything. I have some worries about them, but I think there's a quite good chance that everything will turn out all right, and that we will see some very major productivity and economic improvements once these things really get going. So those are my thoughts. We'll have to see what happens, and maybe these predictions will turn out that Google will win and OpenAI will get acquired, or maybe they won't. So I'll see you guys in the next video.